Are people of faith more prone to scams? A provocative question indeed. Over the years, we've seen a disturbing pattern of scams targeting various religious communities. From the infamous Ponzi scheme architect Bernard Madoff, who defrauded thousands of his fellow Jews, to a Christian radio host in Minnesota, and even 3 Pakistani immigrants accused of scamming Muslims in Chicago. Is it easier for con artists to target people of faith? A question that stirs intense debate. Let's delve deeper into this topic. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. From a Ponzi scheme architect defrauding fellow Jews to a Christian radio host scheme in Minnesota, scams targeting religious communities are not unheard of. In fact, they're more common than you might realize, and they span across all faiths. Take, for instance, the infamous Bernard Madoff, who swindled billions from thousands of his fellow Jews, including notable charities. But it doesn't stop there. Federal investigations have revealed scams that have targeted a wide array of religious groups. From a 3-year scheme by a Christian radio host in Minnesota that resulted in a staggering $190 million in losses, to a heart-wrenching $1.4 billion swindled from thousands of Mormons in Utah. Even more recently, 3 Pakistani immigrants were accused of scamming $30 million from hundreds of Muslims in the Chicago area, promising an investment plan compliant with Islamic law. Recently, a lady pastor and her husband in Florida convinced many Christians to invest in her scheme to make fast money, telling them how God has opened this opportunity for them because the wealth of the wicked is laid up for the righteous. I know of one person who was swindled out of their house in that scheme. I got a call from a friend who told me that someone just called him and told him that he had won $1 million, and he was to give them his banking information for them to deposit the money into his account. I told him it was a scam, but he was convinced that God was giving him a miracle because he was praying for a financial miracle. Even though I insisted that he should not give them his banking information, he still gave them, and as expected, he was hacked. It was reported that in the Caribbean, a preacher convinced one of his members to put him as the beneficiary on her life insurance policy. Then he had her killed. Many Christians are scammed by preachers and prophets who tell them to send hundreds of dollars, and in return, they are going to get a big financial miracle from God, and they never get the promised miracle. Christians have been scammed left and right in their desperate hope of making money. Scammers, whether outsiders or long-standing members of the community, have been known to use scripture, suggesting that making money is aligned with the Lord's will. As a result, victims often lose more than just their money. They lose their faith, which is deeply tragic. But why are religious communities often targeted? One reason could be the trust that is easily established within these communities. Additionally, those who have been deceived are often hesitant to suspect or report one of their own. Trust, a virtue that is often exploited. This statement holds true, especially when we delve into why religious communities are often targeted by scammers. The answer is, in part, due to a blend of trust, belief, and the desire to make money. The faith shared within religious groups creates a certain level of trust that can be easily exploited. Scammers, who may be part of the same congregation or claim to share the same faith, can swiftly gain the trust of their victims. Furthermore, once deceived, members of these communities are often reluctant to suspect or report one of their own. This exploitation of trust isn't overlooked by the authorities. The FBI's Utah Securities Fraud Task Force has issued warnings to members of the Church of Latter-day Saints about such scams. However, while the FBI has taken action, the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, or the SEC, has yet to delve deep into whether religious groups are more susceptible to what is known as affinity fraud. Scams that target specific demographics, like evangelical Christians or the elderly. In essence, scammers take advantage of the trust that exists within religious communities. This trust, often strengthened by shared beliefs and close-knit social bonds, becomes a vulnerability that scammers exploit to their advantage. So we come to the crux of the matter: religion and trust, a correlation that needs further exploration. It's a complex issue that warrants a deeper understanding to safeguard those who, in their faith, become victims of such heinous acts. Christians, like everyone else, are faced with financial challenges and are seeking God's help to solve their financial problems. In the era of wealth preaching, Christians are looking for financial miracles. Scammers know this and devise get-rich-quick schemes and convince the saints to invest in these Ponzi schemes, telling them that this is a plan from God to make them rich. Religiosity and trust, an intriguing correlation. Harvard scholar Robert D. Putnam and Notre Dame's David E. Campbell shed light on this in their book, American Grace: How Religion Unites and Divides Us. Drawing from Harvard's 2006 Faith Matters survey, they found that individuals of faith are seen as more trustworthy by both religious and non-religious Americans, and are generally more trusting of others. The strong social networks present in some faith communities, like the tight bonds among Mormons, seem to make them particularly susceptible to fraud. Nancy Ammerman, a Boston University professor of religion and sociology, concurs, stating that these schemes exploit the high levels of trust within religious communities. Anson Schuper, an Indiana University sociologist specializing in faith-based fraud, suggests that evangelicals, Mormons, and black churches are most vulnerable. In contrast, he posits that Catholics are relatively safeguarded due to their dense hierarchical clergy network. He explains that Protestants and Mormons often believe in a direct relationship between adhering to their faith's principles, financial contributions, and receiving worldly rewards, a belief that can be exploited. Earl L. Grinnells, a Baylor University economist, further suggests that religious individuals might be more open to taking financial risks, believing that their faith will protect them from harm, a mindset that can be manipulated by fraudsters. Religiosity and trust, an intriguing correlation indeed. While faith can bring communities together, it can also make them susceptible to scams. Earl L. Grinnells believes that any perceived correlation between faith and fraud stems from a mistaken notion that religious individuals are easily misled. This misperception leads con artists to disproportionately target them, along with the elderly and the newly affluent. He states, "It's the ease of identifying and finding people in the group to scam, and that the perpetrators have a misperception that these members are more naive." Laurie Schock advises potential investors to verify the legitimacy of investment opportunities with the regional SEC office before investing, whether it's with a trusted congregation member, an endorsed religious leader, or someone promoting faith-friendly investments like church bonds or Islam-compliant loans. Trust, but verify, she advises. If something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. We must apply the wisdom that God has given us to avoid being scammed. As Christians, I know we have many financial needs. However, there is no get-rich-quick scheme unless you win the lotto. We should educate ourselves on the proper way to save and invest. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel.